One thing we were going to ask you about, but I guess this kind of goes with wrestling too. Like, we're in a very PC culture right now. Does that create harder obstacles for you to do your comedy, or does that just go back to fuck it? I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me. If they don't want me, then I won't do the gig.
Well, not so much fuck it. I mean, like, yeah, in a way, fuck it, but like the people that are yelling and screaming about everything, PC culture, cancel this, all that. Those people don't go out. They're losers in front of computers. That's the thing. They're the minority. They're a loud minority. And if you go to a comedy club, no one is yelling, please don't say words. They're not. They're there for comedy. They want to sit and they want to laugh. So, like, a lot of these comics are getting scared and saying, oh, please do. Because, yeah, you're getting shut down on social media. Well, then don't put that shit on social media. Go on stage, make people come see you, and they're going to laugh at what you do. And if you're funny, they'll support it. But Bill Burr is still putting out hours. Yeah. Chappelle's still putting out hours. No one's stopping for me. Mark Norman's new special is great, and it's not PC at all. I mean, Jim Jeffries' new thing, he's not holding anything goddamn back. When you're good at it, and you do it, people will pay for it and see it. It's just the people that want attention and likes, but in the audience, the only thing you're supposed to like is the comic. So it actually switches. So that's all it really is, even with wrestling. I think if you go to a ring, if you go to an arena and watch a wrestling match, and you're good again, you're not worried about what they're saying or too much blood. You're just watching the moment, the story. That's it. But like at TV, I can't have my kids see this. Well, okay, then turn it off. You don't have to yell. You don't have to try to get rid of them. You don't have to shut down what they're doing. Just watch something else.
Another question I want to ask you, comparing a little bit to comedy to wrestling here. We've had a lot of trainers on this show, like Al Snow, George South, Ken Anderson, Rudy Gonzalez, though. He was one.
Tom Pritchard.
Yeah. Rudy Gonzalez, though, who trained, him and Shawn Michaels helped train Daniel Bryan. We're talking about the greatest love was like actually getting to train people. Like he loved training more than wrestling. Pat, I understand you've done some seminars and trained people, and unfortunately trained AJ too. But not counting AJ, is there a certain love did you get out of training as well? Is it just completely different, or how would you compare training to performing?
Well, it's selfish because I don't believe in. I've said this at the beginning of every comedy school I've taught. I don't believe in comedy class. I don't believe you can't teach someone to be funny. Sure. But just like wrestling school, there are some people who need to go to a couple of schools, or some people who can just make an extra touch. Some people don't know how to get into something. If you don't have the balls to just go to an open mic, put your name on a list, and try for the first time, and you need that kick, which is take a class, then good. I'm happy that's there. That's what it should be there for, just to open the door to say, all my classes, my book, everything is about how not to fail at open mics, because that's all you should be doing is going there and doing that. But that being said, when I teach comedy classes, or I help someone one-on-one, or I help someone with their act, it makes me feel like I'm going back to the gym, if you will. Almost like in Rocky 3, when Rocky has that thing, and Apollo's like, come with me to my gym in LA. And we go out there, and then you see all the Eye of the Tiger, all these hungry people with passion. And you need to be around that. So when I'm watching young people care about comedy and wanting to learn it, it makes me go, yeah, I need to feel like that. So I have to keep writing, and I'm pushing myself. So constantly being around it is good. So I do it for more of a selfish aspect than anything else. I don't care about them. Obviously, I'm happy AJ quit.
It's funny. This is the second Rocky 3 reference we've had on this podcast. The other one was Danny Moff, who, if you don't know, is a 300-pound Puerto Rican wrestler who's known for brawling and busting people up. I would have not thought the second Rocky 3 reference would be from Pat Oates, but I'm pretty happy it was, though.
I am one of the biggest Rocky fans in the world.
Yes.
Obviously, I have a dispute with one thing. There is no such thing as Rocky 5. That's it was never made.
Yes.
So if you bring it up, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't happen.
Oh.
I'm equal opportunity. When I go running for my runs every day, I listen to soundtrack music from both White Rocky and Black Rocky. That's how good I am.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Black Rocky is Creed.
Yeah.
and like yourself, I like to believe that they went straight from the Russian killing Apollo to Rocky training his son. To me, that's just the only way to remember it.
What I think happened was, it was like a Jacob's Ladder scenario where it was just that they were dead the whole time. Because why would Rocky help out this guy who ended up getting AIDS in real life and had a weird time? I don't know what that story is. The Go For It song is fine. They could have kept the Go For It song. That's about it.
Oh, man. Hard to follow that one.
How do you not love Rocky if you're a
Oh, you know what's funny too? I want to say this though, because I do love Rocky. So you're right. I like Rocky and wrestling. But it's funny being a wrestling fan. I was out with this girl a couple weeks ago. We had dinner, came back to my place. Not that good of a story. We just watched some reality TV shows. But I realized, well, there's some better stuff, but we're not going to include that. There's names. But we're watching the show, and it's funny, like, she's buying into this, and I realize as a wrestling fan, I'm seeing through everything now. I'm like, oh, they did that as, like, a shoot angle. That's not really real, though. That's bullshit. And I had to, like, shut up, because I was ruining this for her.
Everything's a work.
Of course the work. What are you, fucking Mark?
Everything in life becomes a work.
Ruining it for her. What is she, 4? She's never seen this.
We don't have to worry about her age. That wasn't part of this.
I gotta tell you, I would love to have a conversation with your co-host Brandon from the Pato Files, because I piss my wife off constantly, because every conspiracy theory she comes up with, I tell her that everything's a work because of wrestling, that somebody's behind everything.
That's what he believes. The world's a work. It's run by like 7 or 8 people. It's crazy. I've been friends with Brandon for most of my comedy career, and he did a little bit of comedy here and there, but mostly was a DJ, but also someone who always got involved in things at a crazy level and following them. And he does not believe going out to eat with him right now is amazing, because he will not wear a mask and he fights with everyone and everything. It's amazing to watch. And he's got a way to make to have an answer to everything anyone says, and I'm sitting there behind him with a mask and just wanting a burrito. That's it. That's all I want.
Yeah, I told my wife that Beyonce Knowles is actually in charge of everything, and she's furious at me.
I'd like to use her last name.
No.
No one says Knowles anyway. You use government name Beyonce. How dare you?
I was going to go with Beyonce Z, but wait.
Is that her last name?
That one got me a little late. So, one other thing we wanted to ask you about comedy related to, because I watched some of your podcasts, and it was episode 2, and you have the 2 fat kids in the back eating McDonald's.
He's been dying to ask you about this.
Well, I just thought about, like, you were talking about how life sucks. I'm doing play-by-play for this, and I thought that I had to ask, what are some of the strangest jobs or gigs you've gotten in comedy? It's gotta be interesting.
The strangest one I ever did was I performed at an adult Jewish day camp. It's in upstate New York. It's kind of like the movie Meatballs, but with just old people, not kids. They're all, the youngest person was like 70. And it really was during the day, me and a comic, Mike Manoia, he was brand new. I was only a couple years in. We got the gig. We went up there. During the day, there's no electricity at all.
Wow.
And they had a siren they would flare to get the people into the main hall, which I don't know if you guys know history, but if you hit a siren and a bunch of Jews go into one room, it's usually
That's bad.
thing. But that's how we had to do the show, but there was no lights or microphones. They lit what they call memorial death candles all across the stage. And then so here I am with my bald head screaming at these Jewish people, trying to get them to laugh at things. I can't do any pop culture, nothing. I pretended that I met Jackie Mason at Yankee Stadium because I thought those are things they liked. I just made up this long story. And they weren't fans, but it was a weird gig. I performed in strip clubs. Like I said, I've had for radio, I've had to be a judge for mothers doing air guitar to win tickets to NSYNC. I've had to do that thing you saw, that's not a guy named Ski Mask, his podcast. 2 fat people eating the most McDonald's as I did play-by-play. It's been a fun thing.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad about bringing you to Pistol Pizza anymore. Yeah.
Pistol Pizza is one of the highlights of my whole career.
I'm picturing you up in that camp, though, in upstate New York, with half the audience going, he's no Henny Youngman. I saw him in the Catskills.
And some of them are like, who's Henny Youngman? Is he new Henny Youngman?
Oh.
The best part of that story was somebody got so mad at me they got up to leave, but they had a walker. So as they were trying to leave, it was so silent. You hear cuckoo, cuckoo, and they breathe and go, oh,
Oh my God. All right, Pat, we won't keep you any longer. We appreciate you doing the pod with us. You've been absolutely awesome. Please, anything you want to promote, please share with us.
The Podophiles podcast, go to YouTube. It's on Podophiles podcast, the channel there. Also my own channel, Pat Oates channel. That's where my Pat Oates podcast is. and my show POS, which is also on Compound Media. So yeah, I name every show after myself. But there are all 3 different shows there. Please check all of those out. And I don't know when this is coming out, but I'll be back at the casino at Mohegan Sun August 5th through 9th. I'll be there for the whole week, opening up for what's the name, Ryan O'Flanagan. So I'll be there the entire week, staying up that way. So if you're around in the area, come back out and see some comedy. Wear a mask, but have some fun.
We will definitely stop in for that. Thank you very much for that, Pat. That's awesome. Hopefully we'll see you in August at the show, and thank you for everything, Pat. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'll talk wrestling forever, so thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome to come back anytime and promote anything you want to promote.
Hit me up. I'd love to talk about pay-per-views or whatever. It'd be great.
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us as we do every week. Our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
Hey, this is Kid Kash, and you're listening to the Working Fan Podcast. Check it out.
It's the Working Fans Podcast. It's the man they call Dave, and I'm here today. We got a special guest, a former ECW TV champion, former TNA X Division champion and tag champion, also a former WWE Cruiserweight champion. Guy's done it all. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only KIDD, Kid Kash. Mr. Kash, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. I saw you started out in 1989. I know you were trained by Ricky Morton and Tim Horner. Were you always a lifelong wrestling fan, though?
Yeah, you know, I watched it. I grew up in Central Virginia, and I grew up on NWA, and that's all we got. Every now and then, you know, we would get like Georgia Championship Wrestling, you know, but that would be like really late at night on a certain channel, you know, and stuff like that. So, that, I mean, I watched it, you know, but I grew up in the, you know, the 70s and 80s, so, you know, I had a lot of land and stuff like that, and, you know, horses and stuff. So we worked a lot as kids, you know, out there in the fields and stuff like that. And but whenever I did get a chance to watch it, I did like it, you know, and had my favorites.
So were you very familiar with Ricky Morton?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I grew whenever, like I said, I was, you know, 70s and 80s, so whenever, I don't know, probably about 1985 or 6, it's probably when I first saw them, and it was NWA, brought those guys in, and, yeah.
Yeah,
totally watch them.
That's the time I started following NWA as well, was during that Rock and Roll Express, Four Horsemen kind of era.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like training with Ricky, Tim Horner? Did they ever give you any really good advice that you still use today, out of the ring and in the ring?
Yeah, you know, just take your time. Just take your time, man. You know, don't overload yourself, and, you know, listen to the crowd. You know, that kind of stuff. But what's, not that I wrestle anymore, you know, but it kind of works in life, you know.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Have you been able to get any independent dates with everything going on, or?
I haven't been looking for any. I retired in 2015.
Okay.
And I was out for till about 2000, late 18, and I just started doing a few shows here and there, you know, just, you know, once every 3 or 4 months, you know, just for some people that I knew, and, you know, didn't have to drive far or anything like that, you know, just something to, you know,
just kind of be a part of it still in a way, and mostly being more of an agent kind of guy back in their dressing rooms. I was doing UCW for a while, down in Georgia, and they draw big crowds, and he had like a lot of big name stars and stuff like that on the show. So him and myself and Kevin Sullivan would kind of run the dressing room, and we were doing TV tapings and stuff like that. So Kevin was running kind of like all the TV kind of stuff, and then I was running the dressing room as far as the guys and, critiquing the younger guys and, that kind of thing. So I kind of like doing that. And plus, I still do seminars, things of that nature. I get booked on those quite a bit. So, but I have a real job. I'm a project superintendent for a pretty large construction company, and we build hotels and things like that, and high rises and stuff. So I just wrestle here and there, and I have the insurance and a good paycheck. So I don't want to mess any of that up.
Yeah, absolutely. You keep yourself in good shape. I saw you do a few things with TNA, maybe a couple months ago. They had something with you on where there was Moose or something, I want to say. And
yeah, they brought me down, and it was just for a couple of days. Didn't hardly know anybody at all. I mean, just as far as the staff goes, like Chris Sabin and D'Lo Brown and guys like that. But pretty much everybody else, I was like, wow, it's been a long time. But yeah, I'm still keeping in shape, and I train, pretty much every day, and still do, martial arts training and, working out in the mornings and stuff before I go to work and stuff,
Yeah, you were training before
do a lot
you got
of domestic stuff.
You were always training even before you got into pro wrestling, right? You were always big into martial arts and boxing and stuff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I was boxing when I was 7 years old. My dad was a boxer. He boxed after Vietnam. He boxed in the Navy through the rest of his time, and picked up on that. And when I was about 7 years old, we started training with him a little bit, doing the Pee Wee Boxing League, and teenage stuff, and then started taking martial arts at about 10 years old, and then started, wrestling in school and, things like that. I never played football or baseball, but wrestled and, boxed and did Krav Maga and Aikido.
Wow. I always heard that, I always remember reading stories and stuff like that you were a guy who could handle himself if anything ever went wrong. So I guess it probably helped you out, in the wrestling business, if anyone tried to take advantage of you, I'd imagine.
It did, and at first, Ricky and, Tim and the rest of the people that had a lot, with my training and stuff, they, at first they were telling me to always respect the veterans and just listen to them and, things of that nature. So, a couple of the older guys back in the day, whenever I was young and stuff, I'd show up with Ricky or Tim or somebody like that. So if I wrestled them, they would just beat the living shit out of you, and they just hammer you. And I just thought that's the way wrestling was supposed to be, So I would just start giving it back, and then I noticed that once I started giving it back a little bit, they lightened up a whole lot, But as far as taking the beating, it wasn't a big deal for me, because I was used to that kind of physical abuse, just in all the training growing up, still do to this day, as a matter of fact.
One thing, I'm a big MMA and boxing fan as well as pro wrestling. And one thing I feel like pro wrestlers don't always get the respect they deserve for their toughness in that community. And, yeah, I was looking at, like some of the injuries, a lot of Kurt Angle, he's had a lot of injuries in pro wrestling. And I was looking at you, in the beginning, you had a point in your career, early on, you broke both your ankles in a match.
Yeah, I was in the WWE in Chattanooga in a tag team match, and we did Hurricanranas, turnbuckle to turnbuckle, across from each other. And Scotty Too Hotty didn't let go of my leg. So when we did the full turn, he wound up literally, it messed him up too. I think it hurt his neck and shoulder, but yeah, he was completely upside down and landed on the back of both of my ankles. But I was able and tough enough, I guess, to walk out of the ring. I didn't want to be carried, so as bad as it was and as painful as it was, I walked out of the ring and up the ramp and in the back.
I was wondering about that. I was like, if you get both your ankles broken, if you're able to, again, that goes to you were used to being able to take a lot of punishment too, and probably had a better pain tolerance than most people.
I think the public is more fixated on the fake part of it than really, thinking about what it really takes to be a good pro wrestler and the things we go through and what we put our bodies through. I'm almost 51, so I'm living right now, just with a lot of discomfort because of all those years. I'm broken both of my legs. I've torn ACLs 2 or 3 times apiece, rotor cuffs 2 or 3 times apiece, tore my pec, my bicep, my shoulder, my trap, broken my jaw, my nose, my orbital socket, you name it, hands, feet. A couple ribs along the way.
It's a different kind of toughness, because I have nothing but respect for MMA fighters too, but at the same time, it's a different kind of toughness. We'll take Mick Foley for example, to get your ear ripped off, and you're still,
Yeah.
and doing oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Well, I lived with Mick Foley the night I broke my ankles. When I got to the back, that man was standing there with 2 big bags of ice, and Dustin Rhodes had 2 chairs set up for me. They didn't have to do any of that, but they were watching the monitor, and they saw what had happened. They could tell that I was hurt, so, just the kindness of them, to, whenever I got back, Mick had to literally, walk around the corner there and get bags of ice, out of the ice machine and stuff like that before I could even get the back, so. Just we all looked out for each other, in the injury department, when something like that happens,
That's cool. At least you have that camaraderie where everybody has each other's back in that situation.
Yeah, I'll do that now with those out here.
Speaking of injuries and toughness, now you eventually made it back to ECW, and you had an incident very early on. You broke your jaw. And then you didn't miss any time, didn't miss a match. You wrestled the next day. And it's shortly after that they got the TV title on you briefly. Do you think they put you in that position because of the toughness you showed and your willingness to work?
Yeah, that had a big part of it. I did. I broke my jaw on a Friday night at Center Stage in Atlanta. And the very next day, we were going to be going from there to Birmingham to wrestle a pay-per-view a couple of days later. This was on a Friday night, and Sunday we were doing the pay-per-view. So Saturday, I stayed up all night trying to find doctors. There was a flu epidemic going on down in Atlanta, so nobody considered broken jaw a life-threatening injury. So I had to wait for hours and hours in 2 different hospitals. So I just went on back to my hotel room and got on the phone and started, phone book and started calling just doctors all, of course it was late, nobody was open. One doctor actually called me back within about an hour, and I met him in Marietta about 6 o'clock in the morning, gave him 2 autographed pictures, took a couple of pictures with him, and he wired my jaw shut. And then from there I went back down to Atlanta and got me a couple of prescriptions from the CVS, took a nap, and then drove to Cornelia, Georgia with Jerry Lynn, and then we did a tag team match, enough with AJ Styles, one of the guys. And then from there I went back down to Atlanta, did an appearance, and then drove all the way to Birmingham, Alabama on Sunday morning, and told Paul if he didn't put me on the pay-per-view, then I would quit. Because he took me out, they thought I wasn't coming back, so he took me off the pay-per-view, and I showed up, and I actually had to sign waivers for the night, that if anything happened, then I wouldn't be, hold them liable. So, but he wound up letting me on the show, and we did like an 8-man tag team.
Oh, man. Now,
and I still did my flips, too.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. What's your opinion? He's kind of a lightning rod. People seem to love him or hate him, but how is your relationship with Paul Heyman?
I had a great relationship with Paul. Honestly, I never had a problem with him. He was always supportive of me from day one. He already knew who I was when I first met him, and just by word of mouth and people talking good about me. And plus, I tag teamed with Ricky Morton for a few good years, in the beginning. So that kind of elevated my name a little bit, you know, around, you know, the Indies and then other places, you know, like that too. So, so when I met him, I shook his hand, and I was David Jericho back then. And it was like, well, David Jericho, how are you? And I was like, well, I'm fine, Paul Heyman, how are you? You know, and he always kind of, you know, Northerners, they kind of like that Southern side of people, you know. And so, you know, he thought I was funny, and I thought he was funny. You know, we both talk funny. You know, but, you know, he gave me an opportunity. He didn't have to. Rob Van Dam is the one who introduced us. And Rob was trying to get me an ECW for a good year before I wound up actually just taking a chance. Because I drove up. You know, I lived in Johnson City, Tennessee. I wrestled on a Friday night in North Carolina with Rob. And Rob was like, you need to come to ECW and all this other stuff, you know. You know, I can at least get you a match if you show up, you know. So I drove all the way back from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to Johnson City, which is about 4.5 hours. And I got home at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I would turn on the TV, and late at night on the FSN channel, there was ECW back then. And so I watched it, and I was watching a match with Little Guido and Mikey Whipwreck, and I was like, shit, I'll do all of that. You know, no problem. I can hang with these guys. So I called him, and I was like, where are you guys, when you going to be back up in ECW? And he goes, tomorrow. That's where I'm headed right now. And I was like, all right. So I was like, give me directions. So he gave me directions. Packed me up some clothes, and just at 1:30 in the morning, I think, and then hit the road by 2, and I was there about 10 a.m. in the morning.
Now, like, fast forward a little bit. Now, when you got the TV title briefly, you know, you've been in wrestling, I'm going to guess, for maybe around a little bit at that time. Did you feel like you were starting to make it at that point?
I didn't really know much about ECW at the time, honestly, but I had already had some pretty good little trips, you know, to like Mexico and Puerto Rico and places like that. So was already, you know, talking to people, you know, and getting stuff set up for Japan and places like that, you know. So, I mean, at the time I wasn't thinking I was making anything. I was just trying to stay consistent, and like Ricky and Tim always told me, whatever you do, keep your name out there. You know, so it doesn't matter where you're wrestling, but there's always going to be somebody to report on it. So I did as many independent shows as I could do. You know, if Mexico would take me, I'd wrestle for all of them, and then I'd drive all damn night to do a little shotgun indie show, you know. So at that time, I wasn't thinking about making it per se. I was just trying to stay busy. But then once I was there, I realized that this is going to be a pretty big thing, you know.
Did Paul give you the Kid Rock persona kind of thing, or how did that come about?
Yeah. They well, see, I was David Jericho, and I was there from like 95 to late 96, and broke my leg, and so I was out till 98. So when I went back, Chris Jericho had already been there since I had been gone, and went to WCW. So the Jericho name was kind of, you know, thrown out there pretty big. You know, he gave a big identity to the name, you know. So when I went back, they were like, you know, let's call you something else. So at first I was going as Davey Morton and Kid Kash and a couple of other different names that they were just throwing along the way. And then one night, see, they did all the production out of Paul's basement at his house.
Wow.
So, yeah, this is the old school now. Like, whenever you got 2 TVs set up, you got the 2, you know, the recorders and the VCR and all that stuff, you know. That's how they did it, the old school way. But anyway, MTV was playing on one of the TVs. So while they were recording the match that I just had with Easy Money, at the end of it, the tape popped out and the TV came back on, and Kid Rock video was playing on MTV. And so we both had the long hair. We had like a little bit of a look, you know, together, the same. So I show up in Poughkeepsie, New York, and Tommy Dreamer walks by me and says hello to me. And as he's walking by, he stops and turns around, and he's like, by the way, you're no longer David Jericho, Paisano, Morton, and all that. And I'm like, okay, who am I? He goes, you are now Kid Kash. And I was like, okay. He goes, you know who Kid Rock is? And I was like, I don't. He goes, okay, well, do some research this week while you're home, and I want you to look like him next week. That's when I went to Hot Topic and got some baggy pants and some boxer shorts and a hat and showed up.
Love professional wrestling, but man, what a business, huh? Like, where else would that be where you're like, you're now Kid Kash and you have to go
Yeah.
some research?
And I didn't know the whole thing behind it for years until one day Tommy Dreamer was TNA in our dressing room and then told me the story, how it all came about.
Before I move on from ECW, I got two people I want to ask you about that would have worked there. New Jack. How was New Jack?
You gotta love New Jack.
Yeah.
New Jack was awesome. I knew him from the Smoky Mountain wrestling days.
Mm-hmm.
And after he left, he went to ECW. And then shortly after that, I left and went to ECW as well. So him and Mustafa, they were had a great tag team and stuff. You just gotta know how to handle New Jack,
Yeah.
New Jack is New Jack, and don't try to micromanage him or anything like that. Don't try to give him advice and calm him down or anything like that. Just go with it. And, if he gets a little too crazy, then, kind of mosey along somewhere else, Just don't just don't get in the way after that,
I think we've all had that friend. Just like, all right.
Yeah, but a lot of people take, New Jack is New Jack. Anybody who knows him or has ever been around him knows that he just says whatever is on his mind.
Mm-hmm.
When it offends people, he don't care. So, why go around him if you are going to be offended by him,
Sure.
So, he never offended me. He liked me and we got along and, he loved Ricky Morton to death because Ricky helped and then they stop out, a lot is Smoky Mountain days. And, as far as, building his knowledge and stuff like that of the sport, and matches and things. So, we always had a good relationship. So, I never had a problem with him. He never had a problem with me. And, we hug every time we see each other. I just don't go drinking with him.
That's awesome. Well, actually, okay, good. That's a good segue because the next guy I was going to ask you was Sandman.
Sandman, I love him to death. When I first met Sandman, I didn't know what to think of him because he was just so Philadelphia. Just everything was he was loud. If you ever watch a Rocky Balboa movie or something like that, he epitomizes the true Philadelphia man, So he was a little bit of a shock to me at first, but he grew on me. The only thing I didn't like about him is that he did, he got drunk off of his ass, and until I figured it out, when he wasn't drunk, he couldn't wrestle.
Shit.
But when he was drunk, he wrestled, actually pretty good. He could do arm drag, hurricanranas, and, things like that, things you would never expect him to be able to do, But the only thing I didn't like about him is, man, if you were ever in the way of him swinging that cane, you were going to hurt, because he was drunk, he would just take your brains out. And he would always hit you with the tip of that damn thing, too, so... And I never understood why, because I'm short and he's got very long arms, so it's not that he couldn't hit his target, but...
I think that the fact that he wrestled better drunk, I think we just gave a new definition to the word functioning alcoholic. That's
absolutely. Yeah, it definitely was. And plus, he was a riot, too, after the matches, and back in the dressing room and, listening to him tell stories in that drunk manner of his, and then, of course, you would see him at the hotel bar, still going, and just there was no stop to him,
All right, so actually, one more question about ECW before we move on. Then, was there any funny road stories or anything like that come to mind with ECW times? Did you consider?
Yeah, the thing about one of the road stories with me, I was the only one at that time living in the South, and ECW. The one thing Paul made me when I first went there. Paul made me pay my dues. And that's why we have a lot of respect for each other and stuff because, I respect the fact that he made me pay my dues and he respects the fact that I paid him and I did it willingly. So like the first year, dude, I had to drive to every single fucking town. So I drove from Johnson City, Tennessee to Philadelphia to Allentown to New York City to everywhere,
Wow.
you know. Yeah, and Staten Island, Maine, Connecticut, I mean, you name it, I drove. And so by the time the shows were over with and everybody flew back home, it was taking me, and depending on where I was at, sometimes it was taking me 2 days to get home. So once I did get home, I would have about 2 days to sleep it all off, get my, laundry done and clean the house and get things ready for the next 2 days to go back out on the road. So I spent a lot of time on my own, by myself. So I didn't really, get to drive around with too many people while I was there because I was always driving up from Tennessee, But a lot of crazy stories at the hotels. But I don't know if anybody would want me to tell those stories.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Now, I have in my notes here, too, one thing. You wrestled, if this is correct, one match in WCW, and it was like literally a week or month later, the company was bought?
Yeah. No, it wasn't even a month. It was like 2 weeks.
Wow.
I talked to WCW, John Laurinaitis, and they sent me a deal. I signed the deal. A week later, I went and did a Thunder, and had a really good match, and went home, and I had my packet, for the next week. We were going to be in Panama City. John called me the day before I was going to leave and told me to just hold off. Just a lot of things were going on, and he was going to get back to me on the next road trip. Well, then, of course, I had to watch, I was watching, and then I saw what happened. And then about 2 days later, he calls me back, and they told me that WWE bought the company, bought WCW. They had a lot of wrestlers. They had 2 companies now, so they wanted to keep me, but the conditions have changed. When I signed, Jimmy Hart kind of worked as an agent for me, and I got a really good deal, because of the ECW, fame and stuff like that. So I got a nice deal, guaranteed to hold the light heavyweight title. A couple of good years there, options to re-sign and all that stuff. And then he comes back to me and says that they want to keep me, but they need me to move to Cincinnati, Ohio. They were going to renegotiate my contract. I believe it was going to be all the way down to like 60 or 65,000, something like that. I would be called up whenever they had a position for me. And at that time, I was already like 30 years old, 31 years old. Had a house, kids, 2 kids, so I just couldn't, and why would I want to live in Cincinnati? I lived in Nashville, so it was only going to be about a 3-hour drive for me. So I could go up and stay a couple of days, but I wanted to be able to come back home. And they wanted me to stay there and train at Les Thatcher's gym, I guess do his TV, Heartland Wrestling. And I was just like, I've been in business for 11 years. Why would I need to be trained? And I was an ECW original and standout, so why would I need to be trained? So got back with Jimmy, and Hulk Hogan got in on the deal. Just suggested that it wouldn't be a good thing for my career because the longer I was there, the more my name value would go down until they wound up calling me up, which could be, in John Laurinaitis' words were, how the business is, kid. It could be 6 weeks. It could be 6 months. Who knows? So, I was already, my name value was still going. It was still hot, and I had other offers to go to Japan and, back to Mexico and Puerto Rico and places like that. But Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan were starting the XWF. So I wound up saying no to WWE, and I went with Jimmy and Hulk, signed a 3-year deal with the, who was it? Gosh, it was the Home Shopping Network. Yeah. They were the benefactors of the XWF. So Jimmy got me a no-compete clause. So if the company ever went under, I would continue to keep getting paid. Yeah, or they could buy me out. So we did like 8 tapings. We did about 10 maybe, house shows, in Puerto Rico with Carlos Colon's guys, and we did some out in the Midwest with Terry Funk and them down in Texas and Oklahoma. And after that, they just got a phone call from Jimmy saying that the Home Shopping Network dropped them because some sort of India warehouse was getting taken over by China. So they took their money back. I think they put like $80 million up for that company.
Oh shit!
But they took like 60 of it back. But I continued to keep getting paid. But as shortly, like within a month after that closing down, I signed with TNA. So I was getting paid from TNA, but I was also still getting a paycheck from the Home Shopping Network for 2.5 more years.
Jimmy Hart helped you out as much as he could. Huh? I thought he got some good deals for you here.
Yeah, Jimmy, when I met Jimmy that was 15, 20 years ago, he just liked me, and he always offered, his help if I ever needed it, but I would call him and get advice from him, and then out of that, he would wind up, helping me or guiding me in some way. So, Jimmy, I owe Jimmy a ton in my career.
You get to TNA, and I didn't realize you had worked with Dusty Rhodes in a tag match. It was you and, now Lance Archer. I think he was going by Dallas then.
Yeah.
You guys were the tag champs, and it was Dusty Rhodes and James Archer. What's it like working with Dusty Rhodes and some of those guys there?
It was great. I actually worked Dusty in quite a few matches, in singles matches too. And and it was just a great experience. Of course, it's Dusty Rhodes, man. And he was so great. He was like, "Don't change anything about you." He goes, "But there's some things that I'm just not going to do." And I'm like, "I understand." But I showed him the respect because I was brought in back in, like you said, 89 and 90, when wrestling was still in that rock and roll express phase, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it was more the old school way, and so I knew that way. That's the way I was trained, and then over time I developed my own style. But whenever I wrestled Dusty, I went right back to the days of me training with Ricky Morton. I just let Dusty call the match, and then I added my stuff in there, here and there. And I sold, and I was a heel. Whenever I was a heel, I was the old Tully Blanchard, you know what I'm saying, growing up as a full horseman. So I kind of brought out that persona as a heel, and he just loved it. He was like, wow. He goes, I wasn't expecting that, He said, you didn't even do any high-flying stuff. No. And I was like, well, you don't have to. And he says, I love you, kid. Because, whenever he hears somebody say, I don't have to, because that means that they know. Mm-hmm. They know how to work. Instead of flipping and doing all the crazy moves, they literally know how to draw a crowd by work. Mm-hmm. And we drew a crowd. We did. And I got to work with Harley Race for a few times. I was doing like a legend killer kind of a thing. Yeah. And yeah, so, I got to get punched out by Harley Race and Terry Taylor and Larry Zbyszko and Bobby Eaton. And, so it's just being able to wrestle those guys and work with those guys. For me, and coming up in the era that I did, it was just, for me, it was just icing on the cake on my career,
How was your time in TNA overall?
The worst company I've ever worked for.
No shit.
No, really. And they know it. I still tell them all to this day. Even when I went down and did those few shows, they were like,
"Oh,
it's a different management." So no, I don't. But no, it just wasn't a good time there. They took full advantage of everything, and just a lot of stuff that you don't want people in the public to know, because you could get sued over it,
Sure.
But, just a lot of trouble with them, Their vision was completely different than mine and everybody else's. We just argued about, money a lot and stuff. They lied to you coming in, because it was a new company and stuff. And, I was already a star from ECW and, and other places and things of that nature, so I come in there and they talk all this big stuff, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, you know, and, you know, if you can settle for this amount for the first year, then we'll hook you up after that once we get rolling. And I did, and they never changed the pay. I had to, you know, threaten to quit a dozen times, you know, just to get, you know, a few extra $100 a week out of them, you know, and then checks weren't always on time, and then you find out that some young rookie kid that, you know, that they're using me for, and that's what they wanted. They wanted somebody with a name value to put over all these new young guys that they wanted to brand for their company. You know, so I'm making everybody look, you know, everybody I was working, make them, give them a name, basically, you know, give them an identity by wrestling and beating me, you know. So every night I'm getting beat by some young kid that nobody's ever heard of, and I'm making them a star, but yet they didn't want to pay me what I was worth, you know. But come to find out, they're paying the kid that I'm putting over and making a star more than me, and who's never been anywhere other than the independent scene and TNA. That's it, you know. So it was insulting, you know, and stuff. They were doing it to other people. But at that time, you know, WWE had already bought WCW, so, and they bought AWA. They just bought everybody, you know, at that point. So unless you was with WWE, TNA was the only way to go. So a lot of guys just didn't even say anything. You know, they just accepted, you know, what they were given, and I just wasn't accepting it, you know. And so I quit a few times, walked out a few times, sat at home a few times. At one point I had to threaten to sue them to get my money, you know, because they wouldn't back pay you. They would, you know, give you a check this month, but then you'd go 2 months without a check. And then they would give you a check on the third month, but not back pay you for the last couple of months.
Almost like that other time didn't happen. Like you weren't missing that money still.
Right, exactly, you know. And, you know, at this point it's like, look, I'm a grown man. I'm not some young 20-year-old kid trying to make it in the business in this company. I've already been somewhere. I've already established my name. You know, I've got I got a family. I got a house. I'm an adult, you know, so my bills are important to me, and I had no problems paying my bills as a pro wrestler before I came here. Now that the little contract that with Home Shopping Network had ended, I was just counting on the TNA paycheck all along, you know, after and that just was not enough. You know, it wasn't even remotely near enough. So they bring out T-shirts and stuff like that, and just because of the merchandise in the contract, if they brought out merchandise with your likeness on it, then they had the opportunity to roll you over on your contract. So at the end of my contract, I've already found me a job. I'm ready to go to work for somebody else, and they rolled me over on my contract. And, you know, I basically did everything but beg, you know, Jeff to let me out of my contract. And I was like, well, why would you want anybody working for you that doesn't want to be here? And he looked at me and said, because it's my prerogative. And that's whenever it all ended for me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to get fired. And I did. I wound up getting fired. And then I went to WWE from there. And when I left WWE, they were calling me again, but it was under different management. Bruce Pritchard and guys like that were running the show, Hulk Hogan, and, you know, and just a bunch of other people, you know, that I never thought would be running TNA, you know. Yeah. So I wound up going back there again, and things were good at first, but then the paycheck thing started happening again. You know, they would pay you, and then they wouldn't pay you for a couple of weeks, and then they wouldn't back pay you and stuff, and they would say there was no money, but yet I'm looking across the catering table at Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Kevin Nash. Right. I'm looking at Eric Bischoff. I'm looking at Bruce Pritchard. Somebody's getting paid. Mm-hmm. Why are the talent not getting paid, but yet those guys are getting paid? You know, so it just wasn't what I was in. So I pretty much told them I wanted my release at that point, and they gave it to me this time. I didn't get fired. So
I heard somebody say, I can't remember the wrestler's name, but they were talking about how TNA was hurting and they need to make cuts. But they didn't cut Hulk Hogan. They cut him a mid-level wrestler. And it was like, that was the equivalent of we're on hard times and starving. But rather than cut out the filet mignon, we cut out the beans and the bread. You know, like, why would we?
It was because of Dixie Carter, you know. Yeah. Once Jeff had been left and wasn't a part of the company anymore, you know, she was trying to run a company that she had no idea how to run, you know?
Yeah.
And so what she did is she counted on Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff to run her company. Now, you remember WCW, don't you?
Right.
And Ted Turner, right?
Right.
Did you not think that wouldn't happen again if you got a billionaire's pocketbook to play with? I mean, it wasn't her money; it was her dad's money.
Yeah.
You know, so of course they're going to pay themselves. And of course they're going to respond themselves and give themselves signing bonuses of about $300,000.
Yeah.
Give themselves signing bonuses.
Right. I mean, I think we can look at like.
Not for $50,000 or anything like that, but for like $300,000 and $400,000.
Yeah, it's wild.
Kevin Nash was making, I think, $750, and Kurt Angle was making like I think the same. But Kurt was actually wrestling and being a star of the show and stuff, you know. And Nash and those guys were just in the back, you know. So.
How was your time in WWE before that? They gave you the Cruiserweight title. Obviously, WWE for me, it's like, even at their heyday when they were really cooking on all cylinders, they've never really been one to really push the Cruiserweight division, it feels like, though. Overall, still, though, how was your time and what was that like?
Great time. I mean, it was a good experience and it was a completely different level. You know, growing up in the business, you always hear that WWE is the pinnacle of the sport. And once you're there, you finally realize what they were talking about. The atmosphere is completely different, a whole lot more professional, a lot more going on. It's just such a big company, you know. Just watching them set stage and, you know, and their creative teams and, you know, it's just so many people in one building at one time, you know, trying to make this show right, you know. ECW had a few people running the show. TNA had just a few people running the show, you know. WWE has an entire army. It's just crazy. And, you know, and they really put me out there pretty good. They touched on my character a whole lot better than what, you know, TNA did, you know. So I had a great time.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to promote? Anything you want to talk about you got going on? I know you said you're pretty much retired, but is there anything you want to get out there?
Yeah, I mean, I still do, like I said before, you know, I still do seminars and stuff like that. So if anybody's interested in seminars or appearances, yeah, go to Kid Kash. I think it's David Kash. It's my Facebook and just shoot me an email, and my Instagram. I think it's David Kid Kash or something like that. I don't know. But you can just look it up. It'll show you. I'm old now. I just work all day and come home and watch Fox News.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it a lot, man.
Hey, man, no worries. Anytime.
Awesome. All right. Hey, have a great night.
All right, you too, buddy. Bye.
Working Fans Podcast, welcome back for another week of the 531, where we take a top 5 list on a particular subject, debate it down to a top 3, and apparently Zach says there is no top 1, so it is the king of the hill, the cream of the crop, the man with the crown, the number 1 spot. And this week we're going to have the top 5 people that should have been Horsemen. And to kind of give you an idea what we're looking at, Zach has our first list, and he's got Stunning Steve Austin, Rick Rude, Midnight Express, Shawn Michaels, and MJF. Scott's got a list. He's got the Midnight Express, Mr. Perfect, Stunning Steve Austin coming in alongside Brian Pillman, I'm going to guess he means that Hollywood Blondes era. I don't know if they teamed outside of that at all.
No, that's the Hollywood Blondes era.
Okay. Chris Jericho and Rick Rude. Couple solid lists so far.
Yeah.
Jake has our next list. He's got Stunning Steve Austin, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Shane Douglas, and Adam Cole.
Very interesting, Shane Douglas. Seeing how much Shane Douglas legit had heat and didn't like Ric Flair. But he would have made a good Horseman, I think.
Yeah, maybe it would have been in a time just after Flair goes back to WWE one time. Why not put Shane Douglas in there? Interesting pick.
Like,
I mean,
what are you looking for?
What's that?
It's almost like what you're looking for. When I think of the Horsemen, I think of guys that can wrestle, can talk, good-looking guys who are hit with the ladies, and besides being like Ric Flair, like got the Iron Anderson role, but then you also have kind of maybe that young upstart sometimes too that you can kind of strap a rocket to.
Well, what's your opinion of the Midnight Express in that position? Because we've got them on a couple lists.
The Midnight Express would have been great because they both can work. Now, Bobby couldn't really talk, but he would have been such a good, in all the tag teams they would have done, besides teaming with Stan. I mean, you put Bobby in the sixth man, he's just the glue that would hold it all together. And as for Stan Lane, he had to look as well, because, spoiler, you're going to be hearing about Stan Lane on my list. So.
Nice. Now, Randy brought us a list. Randy Osgood, fan of the show. He had...
Yeah, Randy, number one fan, Patreon. Love this guy. Randy hit us.
Future Patreon. People that are listening, we don't yet have a Patreon, but believe me, we're looking to put one together soon. If you think it's a good idea, email us. Tell us what you'd like out of a Patreon.
Sure.
But we're going to tell you what Randy likes out of a list. He's got Seth Rollins, John Cena, Wardlow, Rey Mysterio, and Eli Drake.
The only guy I really liked on that list is Eli Drake. Seth, on the right circumstances, maybe. Cena, I don't see him fitting a Horseman because of this. I don't know. I think it's the whole rapping, jean shorts. Mysterio, I don't remember any luchadors for Horseman. Wardlow, it's a little early to tell if he could have fit that muscle role. But I guess, you can kind of almost see that. But
I think, if anything, I see him and Cena both coming in that muscle role, but also in a suit.
Right. His list is a little out of the box. I'll give him that. But, I mean, as far as guys, I think just based off their current day character, the only one I see really fitting in there would be a guy like Eli Drake who can talk.
Yeah, and he would actually have to be at a time when you don't have a Flair in there, too, because almost similar energies a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Tully could have carried the Horseman, too, on that argument. But at the end of the day, it was going to be carried by Rick. I guess it all depends with, I think Eli would make a good Horseman, but would he eventually outgrow a Horseman? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it would be like a transitional spot for him. Now, Mike Flynn brought us two lists this week because, as with any of these lists, sometimes they're a little bit open to interpretation. So Mike Flynn had a list. If it was just in WCW, I believe at the time, or just in WCW period, he would have Chris Jericho, Rick Rude, Stunning Steve Austin, Eddie Guerrero, and a young AJ Styles.
Interesting. AJ would have been a very interesting one just because of the way he could work.
I mean, we kind of saw in TNA what he is underneath Flair's tutelage with the robes and shit.
Yeah, I know. You saw Fortune. Yeah, we did the Fortune thing. That was good.
Yeah.
I don't know if he liked it at the time. Because I think he was kind of like I don't think he liked being the mini Ric Flair type thing. But I thought that, I don't know, I liked Fortune. I thought it was interesting. I've always liked factions like that. And, I liked Evolution. To me, it was kind of a homage to, the Horsemen. And I don't know, I've always been a big fan of it.
Yeah, it was weird. It was almost like the Horseman, but with Flair in the J.J. Dillon role now. And that's why if they had a modern-day Horseman, I would be excited to see Arn Anderson, Tully. It's the one thing that, AEW almost needs to do, but how do you pull it off, right?
I mean, even in the NWA, Risky Business, with Nick Aldis as the champ, it kind of reminds me of Little Horseman-esque. Not quite, but there's definitely elements there.
And with them, Camille, the female, is the muscle. So that's an even more interesting twist on the idea.
Yeah, that almost adds like a China DX dynamic with it. So that's why it's very interesting, you know. But yeah, I'm a fan of those guys too.
Eddie Guerrero could almost fit that Gino Hernandez role that Bruce Pritchard always talks about seeing Hernandez in. So I think that's an interesting pick. Now, Mike Flynn also has a list of, if it was just anyone, he would choose Chris Jericho, Rick Rude, Steve Austin. I'm going to assume Stunning Steve again. But the only reason I question myself is because instead of young AJ Styles this time, if it was anyone, he would like to see peak AJ Styles in there. And then 5 is Adam Cole. It would almost be interesting to hear, I guess because AJ Styles was young when he was in WCW and anything afterwards was his peak and his growing time. I don't know if I see necessarily a peak AJ Styles in the Horseman. It just doesn't seem like his personality.
A lot of it really depends, like, how you interpret this, too. Like, I could see AJ making a good Horseman, but again, I don't know how long it would last. And, you know, like, again, Ric Flair was going to be the man in the Horseman no matter what.
True. Now, AJ not here this week, but he definitely brought us a list. His list is topped by Kurt Hennig. Gino Hernandez is next. Stunning Steve Austin is 3rd. Rick Rude is 4th. And Lord Steven Regal is 5th.
Okay, 2 things. I want to point out, too, for anyone who hears this, and Scott talked about this, too, and I think AJ had the same mindset. Yes, Kurt Hennig was technically a member of the Horsemen, but it only lasted a week. It was all to set up an angle where he was going to turn on them.
Oh, right.
For anyone who thinks you don't know. Yeah, we do know that.
So they both put Mr. Perfect, and in my head I just said Hennig, not even thinking that you want more of a peak level Hennig than what you got in the Horseman or the run he had.
Yeah, you would like to see how he would have actually fit in that group of long haul. It's a little hard to say he was a Horseman for only a week and set up an angle, but technically, you know, I can see the people going, well, actually, Kurt Hennig was a Horseman, so let's just put it out there. We know.
Now that you mention that, I think I remember that in the text.
Yeah, Scott had mentioned it, yeah. As for Steve Regal, that's an interesting pick. You know, my picks are more like guys I thought who fit that lifestyle and that look. Regal didn't necessarily have that look all the time, and we didn't really have a guy like...
He could definitely fit that lifestyle.
Well, yeah.
I mean, part of it.
But, you know, he could dress well, and the guy could go in the ring, so he would have been an interesting Horseman. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I just want to say that's an interesting pick, and that's one that actually got me thinking. So good on AJ for coming up with Steve Regal.
And I see him almost going into the Horseman, but being like that lone wolf in the Horseman with him and Bill Dundee as his manager. And I can see it being a thing where he's with the Horseman because he's got that British aristocratic air. And then I see him breaking away from the Horseman almost at first chance. Now, Jesse from New Hampshire has our next list, and he has Bobby Heenan, Alex Wright, Rick Rude, Scott Steiner, and Rick Steiner.
Okay. Very interesting list. First off, Bobby Heenan and that JJ list. That's an awesome idea. I didn't think about that. Second, Alex Wright would be a pick that maybe some people will go, no, I don't know, and maybe James the Heat, but, you know, again, probably would have been good with the ladies, would have attracted them. He's an interesting one. One I'm not going to say I like or dislike, but much like Regal gets me thinking, like, oh, I wonder how he would have fit. The Steiners, that's like throwing the Midnight Express in there. Now you just kind of put the tag team in, but boy, there are a couple badasses that could beat you down. So again, interesting pick there too. I like it.
And the way I see the Steiners coming in is you start them off in the Michigan jackets from that era. You bring them in, and you almost run an angle where like you're trying to sophisticate them, like you're trying to get them in suits. They can go in the ring, but it's trying to maybe get them into the Horseman lifestyle where you could get some lifeline out of that pairing. Now,
I mean, they make a good Minnesota wrecking crew, you know, just like being Ole and Iron.
Yeah, that's true. Now, former guest on the show, Chris Zauha from the Rockin' Randy's Rockin' Wrestling Group, he only had Paul Orndorff and Steve Austin on his list. And it's not a bad list, to the point.
No, Paul Orndorff is a great addition to that list. There's a guy that, likes to wear the fancy robes and also just a tough son of a bitch, too. So he would have been a very good one.
It's almost like that Paul Roma. Like, if you had Orndorff instead of Roma, how much more would people remember his run necessarily?
Yeah. I think Roma was hurt by the stigma. Like, Triple H said it best, I think, on a DVD of the Horseman. He said, when they announced Paul Roma, everybody's reaction was like, the job guy from WWE? And unfortunately, that's just, even though he had a good run of Power and Glory, Jake will tell you that was a favorite underrated team of his, Zach too. And I like him as well. He used a superplex top rope splash as a finisher, which was very unique back in that day. But Roma was hurt kind of by a stigma going in, and for that reason, probably really didn't lend a lot of credibility and wasn't necessarily a good fit for the Horsemen. But on paper, he kind of looked the part, dressed nice,
Yeah. Now, the next list we have up, this is an interesting list from Shard Johnson in the Rockin' Randy's Rockin' Wrestling group. And the way he gave the list was, I'll read it off and you'll understand where I'm going. It says Revival / Arn and Tully. So Revival in the Arn and Tully role. MJF / Flair. So MJF in the Flair role. Trevor Murdoch / Ole. So Trevor Murdoch in that Ole role. And then Tully in the JJ role.
Interesting. So this was almost like this is the Horseman you could see right now. Like, especially if Trevor was an AEW, this could definitely be almost a possibility. It's a very interesting list.
Yeah, and when I saw him do it, I almost got jealous because I'm like, shit, if I had only thought to, put together your modern Four Horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Thor made it into the room. Thor, say hello. This little motherfucker pushed the door open against all odds. He's really a worker.
Cool.
All right, so where the fuck were we? My list is next.
Thor.
Yeah, giving Thor the goddamn business.
Thor's getting over.
My list is next. I got Stunning Steve Austin, Eli Drake, Chris Jericho, Midnight Express, and MJF.
Interesting. All solid. I don't know why. It's funny you say it too. Stunning Steve Austin would have made a good Horseman. Stone Cold Steve Austin, not so much.
No, and no, I can't see it. And if you had him in there at all, it would almost be like that thing where the Horsemen are trying to civilize him, almost like the idea I was pitching with the Steiners. But I imagine it just to go not well with Austin. Like, he would be a member of the Horsemen technically, but he would be just such an outside force that you would just think of him as something separate. Now, Dave, we are down to one person we haven't heard from yet. Who do you got on your list?
Main event time, baby. I'm going to bring it to you. I like AJ. I thought Dino Hernandez would have been a good fit for the Horsemen. He's kind of he's a team with Tully Blanchard. I think he just kind of, he lived that lifestyle in and out of the ring, as we all know, if you know about Dino. And he can go in the ring. He would have been a good fit. Nick Aldis. Maybe because Nick would have had to have been the man. He might not have been good for the long haul, but he fits the look to me. Dresses well, can go in the ring. Just a personification of a champion. Now, here's another guy, kind of like Nick Aldis. Maybe he wouldn't be able to fit the long haul because he wasn't going to be the Ric Flair, but kind of a throwback. Nick Bockwinkel. Fancy suit, can work in the ring, can cut a great promo. I think Nick Bockwinkel could have made a good Horseman. Same with Stan Lane. Stan Lane of the Midnight Express. People pick the Midnight Express because, they're a great team and they would have made great matches. But Stan fit that look more than Bobby used to. And another guy I had to include to kind of have a little modern era flavor in there, Adam Cole. Adam Cole's got the look. He can wrestle. He can talk in the ring. And if you've been listening to me on these 5-3 runs, you know what a big Adam Cole mark in fan I am. So that's my list.
Nice. Now, kind of from the names that you've heard, Stunning Steve's definitely popped up a couple times. Rick Rude's popped up a couple times. Who do you think should go into that last spot? Chris Jericho's on a few lists. MJF's on a couple. Midnight Express. Since 1 and 2 are such a definite spot, I'm going to let you pick the number 3 from what you think is best.
Boy. Based off the names that were tossed around, I think that MJF, honestly, should slip in there. He wasn't on my list, but I thought about putting him on it, but Like, when you look at guys like Jericho and Rude, even though, like, they mean more overall with their body of work, MJF, his ability to talk, the look he has, I just think he personifies what a Horseman should look like a little more.
Yeah, definitely with that designer scarf he wears and just the way he's always dressed nice when you don't see him in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely has that air about him where he could definitely make it, I think.
I think so.
So now it comes to the first cut. We got Stunning Steve Austin, Rick Rude, and MJF. Who do you feel should go first?
All right. Again, I'm going to take a look at this like in the big picture. Rick Rude, tremendous career. He's got the look, but there's just something where, you know, like Stunning Steve Austin at points of his career, he played that member in the Dangerous Alliance where he was kind of second fiddle to Rick Rude, if you look at that. Rude didn't play second fiddle a lot. I don't know if ultimately, when we're looking at fitting in the Horseman, he would have been the guy out of the three. Like, I think he would have had the most trouble fitting in. Too much of a strong mind. Even behind the scenes, like, Rick was one of the guys that didn't like having Bobby Heenan because he didn't want a mouthpiece. And how often do you hear somebody not wanting Bobby Heenan?
Yeah, Bobby Heenan's gold anytime. But it also shows you where Rick Rude believes his abilities are, where it's like, I got this. I don't need Heenan.
No, and he's tremendous. I just don't know if that mindset is what you want him for.
So you see Rick Rude as the first one out. That was kind of what I was thinking, too, because it's kind of a tough pick between Stunning Steve and MJF. I mean, I think on the face of it, MJF seems the more obvious choice. But, I mean, we've seen that Steve Austin can be that ass kicker. And at the time that he would have been in the Horsemen, I mean, he still had that long blonde hair, especially if you have the idea of bringing him in with Pillman as the Hollywood Blondes. That would have been like the younger half of the Horsemen, but I mean, just what a team.
I think most of our fans like the older stuff. I think they would actually better us pick Stunning Steve Austin. And I love Stunning Steve Austin. I like Stunning Steve and Stone Cold Steve Austin better than I like MJF. And that's not a fight at MJF. It's just both of them are my two favorite characters of all time. However, again, when I look at who's going to fit in the Horseman better, even Stunning Steve in his prime, I don't know. I mean, he's good. He definitely fits in more than Rude would have. But I just think there's something about MJF. The more I think about it, I wish I would have included him on my list. But the more I think about it, I really feel like MJF would have been a great, like, Tully. Like, he just would have been a piss you off, shit on you, get the whole crowd, especially back in that time period, just to hate you.
Yeah, he would have gotten that Cornette level heat. So actually, that is a really good pick. All right, so
I say if it's a hot take or not, I like MJF. I don't care. That's what I think.
And I mean, Dave, you know what the music means. I think we've picked our winner this week, and MJF is the top person that should have been a Horseman.
And I'll say on this too. And if you don't like it, it's because he's better than you, and you know it.
Dave's getting that plug in, so hopefully we can get him on the show one day.
Got to get my shit in, brother. I'm trying to get over here too.
God, I know. At least two of us got to get over out of this group, right? But you know how to get a hold of us. We're on Twitter at FansWorking. We are on Instagram, WorkingFansWrestling_pod. We're on Gmail, WorkingFansWrestlingPod@gmail.com. And we'll see you guys later.
This is Paislee, and you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, everybody. It's the man they call Dave. We're here with the Working Fans Podcast. And today we got a special guest, a young lady who's been a manager, a pro wrestler, a model. Her name is Paislee, and today she's going to teach us why Paislee knows best. Paislee, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to get you on here and talk to you. And we like to start at the beginning usually. I like to ask, were you a fan of wrestling growing up, or did you kind of fall into this? How did this happen?
So I wasn't a fan when I was growing up. I actually didn't really know much about it. It wasn't until I had kids when they got really into it, and I decided one night, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to buy tickets. We're going to go to a show. And that's kind of when I got into it. I was like, we went there, and I said, you know what? This is something I can do. Kind of caught the ear of the right person, I guess, and it kind of just happened from there.
So timing, a lot of times, as we find out in life, is helpful.
Yes.
So you got the ear of the right person. Did that tell you where to train? Like, so where did you end up training, and how did that come about?
I was talking, when I was there, I had caught the ear of one of the guys who was working security. He actually had his own academy. So he had me go out and start with them. And he was just like, hey, why don't you come out on Sunday? And let's see, if you can do anything, what you've got. And then, I mean, it just kind of, I just went and decided, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And yeah.
That's awesome. Now, have there been some other people along the way that have helped you out on this journey? Like, whether personal or people in the wrestling business?
As far as helping me out, honestly, everybody that I have talked to, even if it was just a short little, Instagram message, or if it's actually people that I'm training with, everybody's helped me in some way or another. Right now, I currently train under former Impact wrestler Hang Time, so he's a huge help, obviously, teaching me all my in-ring training. And then I have a lot of people who I do train with or I do shows with. Everybody is just so nice and willing to help me in any way they can. So I've gotten help from all over the place from so many people.
Well, that's awesome. That's good to hear. That's not the journey everybody takes, but it sounds like you've had a lot of positive people around you, so that's good.
Yeah, I try to keep my ear open. That's the best way, is just to kind of be a sponge and take everything in, whether it's good or bad. Everybody has their own way of doing things. And it's just great to listen to what everybody has to say, and then just, listen, ask questions, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think, too, just to have thick skin is very helpful, too. Like, understand that sometimes people are trying to help you, right? Yeah. So another thing I want to ask you, too, is, what have been some of the harder aspects about the wrestling game? Whether it's physical, travel, promos, what have been some of the tougher challenges for you think?
Getting into promos is hard, but a lot of it, too, is when you're actually in the show, you have to be able to read the crowd and to kind of all the psychology behind it. You have to know where the where the hard camera is. You have to know, okay, these people are really into it, so feed off of them. And, maybe go over to this side more. And you just have to really, for me, pay attention to every little thing that's going on. Yeah, so I would say that's probably the most challenging part, is just being hyper aware of everything going on.
Right. The timing of when to do it. Well, you know what to do, but almost when to do it, right?
Exactly, because you have to make sure that it looks good, from all different angles. Because if you look at it, there is somebody on every side of the ring, and you have to make sure if I'm doing something on one side that it's still going to look good on another side too, so everybody's getting the best possible show. That's
very good. Now, I saw you're a model too. Are there any other interests you're working on currently?
Not currently. I'm just kind of learning as much as I can about everything, working as hard as I can, but wrestling right now is huge. Learning how to do the managing, learning how to do promos, that's really, really what I'm focusing on right now.
Do you have a preference, whether it's wrestling in the ring or being a manager?
I actually really like being a manager. I really, really do like it. I think I love working in wrestling too, but it's a whole different dynamic being a manager. You really get to be right up there with the crowd the whole time, but you also get to be, right by ringside too, and kind of almost in both worlds. And then you do kind of get in the ring too, not necessarily wrestling, but you can get in the ring to, talk or, maybe distract the ref, stuff like that. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
When you're a manager, I'm just curious, do you feel like you're more part of almost like a team because you're trying to get the other wrestlers over and the match over too?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, I can see that, and that's a fun thing. I think me personally, I've always enjoyed that camaraderie almost, and trying to help other people, that team sport mentality. So I guess.
Yes. We either win as a team or lose as a team.
Yeah, that's right. You have a T-shirt at Pro Wrestling Tees. Did you design that, or how did you come about that?
So. Yeah, okay, so some of the T-shirts I did design myself, which is kind of awesome. Other T-shirts, my fans actually designed for me. I kind of do little contests or competitions where people will submit different ideas that they have, and they come up with all these different designs, and then we'll choose one of those, me and my team. And so it's really nice because I feel like I get to get them involved too. So my fans are always getting involved, doing something, and that's a really great way for me to show them, that I do appreciate them. So I do some, and my fans do some.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, now that also too, the fans are now getting a personally vested interest in something too. So I think that's super. Like, you're really getting everybody involved there. That's awesome.
I'm trying.
It's good. It's very like almost grassroots kind of, out campaigning. I like it. What about goals? Like, do you have a goal you see yourself, or you want to see yourself in the next year, or anything in particular?
So within the next year, I do want to be wrestling more. I want to be learning, I want to take as much time as I can to learn the business as well as I can, and start implementing that inside the ring also. So really within the next year, I just want to focus on my training, getting stronger, learning a lot more of the psychology of it, and just really learning all the different things that are going to help me succeed. So maybe one day I do get to go to one of the big agencies. Awesome.
One thing I've noticed I think you're really good at is promotion. Is there any particular mindset when it comes to promoting?
Yeah, no, you just gotta be in touch with everybody. And a lot of what I do is I do talk to, if you reach out and send me a message, I am going to message you back. It might take me a little while, but that's one thing that I really strive for, because I want people to know me personally too. So the more you do that, the more people are going to interact with you, and the more they're going to, tell their friends, hey, why don't you go check out Paislee? Or to the little 10-year-old who is, so into wrestling, and oh my gosh, Paislee sent them a message, even if it's just, hey, thanks for following me. Or, if somebody needs a tip on what, to do to get stronger, to work out. I even had, when school was still in session, I had a young lady reach out to me and ask me which prom dress she thought, or she wanted me to pick for her, essentially. So it's great.
That's awesome, man. That must be kind of a mind blow a little bit, when that happens.
It went from 0 to 100 so fast, and I love every second of it.
How did you come up with Paislee Knows Best? Who was involved in that process, and how did that work?
That was just kind of my kids, actually. Oh, yeah. They kind of came up with it. It's kind of one of those mom knows everything type thing. And the 13-year-old looked at me one day and was just like, what about Paislee Knows Best? That sounds great. And I was like, yeah, I like that. Let's go with it. Let's run with it.
That's awesome. Tell people where they can find you and anything else you might want to promote right now.
Awesome. So you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, at Paislee Knows Best. I keep up with all my fans and everybody there. And it has all my information for where you can contact me, who you can talk to. I have lots of stuff in the works right now. So just keep up with my pages, give me a like, give me a follow, and you'll be able to be involved in Paislee's life.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll make sure we'll tweet all that stuff out too when this interview comes out. Thank you for your time. And that was awesome. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. No, I really enjoyed having you on. You're a great personality, very charming, and I think that's going to come across. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.